You won't believe what happened when a mother's love was betrayed by the man she trusted most. And the shocking twist that came years later. A fire, a deadly secret, and a daughter's revenge. This is the story of a family torn apart by deceit and a vengeance that changed everything. Zara thought her life was perfect. She had everything she ever wanted. A kind husband named Nuru, a beautiful little daughter named Amara, and a cozy home nestled in the peaceful green valleys of Uganda. Every evening, after a long day, the family would gather under the old giant baobab tree near their house. Zara would sing sweet lullabies as Amara laughed and ran after the fireflies dancing in the warm evening air. Their laughter filled the skies, and for Zara, it felt like nothing could ever go wrong. She believed love tied them all together like an unbreakable thread. But sometimes, the greatest danger hides right inside the walls you trust the most. While Zahra sang to the stars, believing her world was safe, Nuru was busy whispering promises into the ear of another woman. And not just any woman. It was Naledi, Zahra's best friend, the one she trusted like a sister. Behind the smiles and shared secrets, Naledi hid a dangerous love for Nuru, and Nuru, selfish and weak, welcomed it. What started as stolen glances quickly turned into secret meeting. A love that was never meant to exist began to grow in the shadows, poisoning everything Zahra held dear, and she didn't even know it. To Zahra, Naledi was more than just a friend. She was like family, someone she trusted with her life, her secrets, her home. They had shared countless memories together, laughed till their sides hurt, cried on each other's shoulders, and made promises to stand by one another no matter what. But behind Naledi's warm smiles and sisterly hugs, a dangerous secret was growing. Naledi had fallen deeply, madly, in love with Nuru. And it wasn't the kind of love that respected boundaries. It was the kind of love that burned and demanded, no matter who got hurt. Nuru, on the other hand, was not the faithful husband everyone believed him to be. Greedy for more excitement, more passion, he let himself get pulled into Naledi's trap. At first, it was just harmless flirting, secret glances when Zahra wasn't looking, light touches that lingered too long. But it didn't stop there. Late at night, when the world was asleep and Zahra trusted them both completely, Nuru and Naledi would sneak away to hidden places. In the dark, they shared forbidden kisses, whispered promises of a new life where they could be free, where they didn't have to pretend anymore. Their stolen moments grew into reckless plans. They talked about how different life could be if Zahra wasn't around. They imagined a future filled with wealth, comfort, and each other. But there was one problem standing stubbornly in their way: Zahra and little Amara. As long as they were alive, Nuru and Naledi could never be together openly. And slowly, a wicked idea began to take shape in their hearts. An idea so dark that once spoken, there would be no turning back. The night air was thick and heavy as Nuru crept into Naledi's small hut. The cracked roof above their heads let in the faint light of the moon, casting long, broken shadows across the floor. The world outside was silent, but inside that room, something evil was being born. Naledi sat close to him, her face glowing with a twisted excitement. She leaned in, her voice barely a whisper but sharp enough to slice through the air. "A fire," she said, her eyes gleaming with a terrifying light. "A fire will leave no questions, no evidence, no suspicion. It will be over before anyone even realizes." Nuru's heart pounded. He knew this was wrong, deeper than wrong. But the thought of finally being free to live with Naledi, of claiming Zahra's insurance money and starting a new life, made his head spin. He hesitated for a breath, feeling the last flicker of guilt inside him. But it was swallowed quickly by his greed, by his lust, by the promises Naledi painted for him with her soft, poisonous word. One small act, one terrible night, and they could have it all. Together, they leaned over a worn wooden table, whispering their wicked plan like two devils in the dark. They chose Zahra's upcoming birthday night, a perfect distraction. Family and friends would be around, lots of confusion, noise, and celebration. Naledi would spill oil from a lamp upstairs while pretending to help clean. The flames would spread fast, the house would turn into a death trap, and no one would question a thing. Zahra and little Amara would be trapped inside before anyone could save them. They even rehearsed how they would react, how Naledi would scream and cry for help, how Nuru would pretend to break down in front of the villagers. They planned the exact moment Naledi would slip away unnoticed, how Nuru would cover for her, and how the two of them would meet later as if by coincidence. Every small detail was plotted, timed, and perfected like a gruesome play. By the end of the night, there would be no witnesses left to tell a different story, only ashes, broken hearts, and a new beginning waiting for them. Sitting there under that broken roof, two people who should have protected Zara and Amara instead shook hands on a plan to destroy them. And once they made that dark promise, there was no turning back. The countdown to betrayal had already begun. The night was meant to be filled with laughter, songs, and warm memories. Zara's birthday had brought family and friends together under the open sky, with colorful cloths spread out, candles twinkling like tiny stars, and the sweet smell of roasted meat floating in the air. Zara's face glowed with happiness as she hugged her guests, completely unaware of the dark cloud already hanging over her. Late into the night, when the dancing slowed and the guests began to drift home, Naledi stepped forward with a sweet smile and offered to help clean up. Zara, tired but grateful, agreed, while Nuru, pretending to be the caring husband, carried little Amara upstairs to bed. The house was quiet except for the soft sounds of clinking plates and whispered goodnights. Then, in a moment that would change everything, Naledi accidentally tipped the oil lamp sitting on the wooden shelf. The oil spilled across the floor, and within seconds, a small flame turned into a raging fire, swallowing the room with terrifying speed. Zara screamed for Amara, her heart pounding wildly. She tried to run upstairs, tried to reach her daughter, but the thick smoke choked her lungs, and the heat burned her skin. Outside, the villagers heard the screams and rushed toward the house, shouting and pouring buckets of water, but the fire was too strong, too wild. The flames danced higher, mocking every effort to save the family trapped inside. Zara's cries for help grew weaker, and then, silence. By morning, where there had once been a home full of love, there was only blackened wood and grey ash, swirling sadly in the morning breeze. Standing before the broken remains of his life, Nuru put on the performance of his life. He wept loudly, tearing at his clothes, falling to his knees as the villagers watched with heavy hearts. Many wept with him, believing they were seeing a broken man mourning his wife and child. But behind those crocodile tears, Nuru's heart was cold and calculating, and right there beside him, clutching his hand and sobbing into his shoulder, was Naledi, the grieving best friend, hiding her guilt behind fake tears. To the villagers, they looked like two souls shattered by tragedy. No one knew that they were actually two murderers, standing in the ashes of their crime, already dreaming of their new life together. Less than a year after the tragic fire, the whole village watched in quiet shock as Nuru and Naledi stood before the elders and became husband and wife. It was a simple ceremony, with forced smiles and eyes full of unspoken words. People whispered behind closed doors, their hearts uneasy, but no one dared to speak openly. After all, there was no proof, only ashes, only memories lost in the smoke. Nuru had been careful, too careful. He had played the grieving husband perfectly. With the insurance money from Zara's death, Nuru's life took a glittering new turn. He built a huge new house at the edge of the village, tall and proud, painted in bright colors that almost seemed to mock the tragedy. He bought shiny new cars that roared through the quiet dirt roads, kicking up dust and jealousy. In every photo, he stood with Naledi, smiling wide, arms wrapped around her, like a man who had conquered sorrow and found happiness again. It was almost as if Zara and little Amara had never existed, like they were just bad dreams he had finally woken up from. Nuru and Naledi filled their new home with laughter and parties. They hosted grand feasts, invited the villagers, and gave gifts so lavish that many began to forget the unease they once felt. Money has a way of making people look the other way, and Nuru knew it. Soon, Naledi gave birth to a son, Jabari. He was a chubby, loud little boy who became the center of their world. They spoiled him with everything: toys, sweets, fancy clothes. Jabari grew up believing he was a prince, that the world was his to command. His laughter filled the halls of the house built on ashes, masking the dark history that no one dared speak of anymore. Nuru and Naledi believed they had won. They believed the past was dead, buried deep under the charred ruins of Zara's old home, locked away forever. They moved through life with the arrogance of those who think they have outsmarted fate, who believe the darkness they caused would never catch up to them. But they forgot one thing: the dead have their own clocks, and though silent, those clocks never stop ticking. Somewhere, in the hush of the night winds, In the silent corners of the village, the past was stirring, watching, waiting, because no matter how deep you bury a crime, no matter how brightly you paint over your sins, the truth always finds a way to rise. 12 years passed, like a soft whisper through the village, and the tragic story of Zara and little Amara faded into the background like an old song no one wanted to sing. Life moved on, and Jabari, now a handsome young man of 20, had grown into the very image of pride and charm. Every girl in the village admired him, but Jabari had eyes for only one person, a girl he had met in the city, a girl he swore had captured his heart completely. Her name was Said. The day Jabari brought Sadie home was bright and breezy, with the sun high in the sky and the birds singing sweet songs. Jabari held Sade's hand tightly, beaming with excitement as he introduced her to his parents. Naledi prepared a grand welcome, and Nuru sat stiffly in the living room, waiting. But the moment Sade stepped through the door, it was like the air itself shifted. Nuru's heart skipped a beat. His blood turned to ice. He stared at the young woman standing before him, and something deep, something forgotten and ugly, twisted inside him. Her eyes, deep brown, wide and knowing, felt too familiar. The way her lips curved into a soft smile, the tilt of her head, even the sound of her laughter. It was like seeing a ghost wearing a stranger's skin. Naledi, too, could not hide her shock. Her hands trembled as she offered Said a drink, her smile frozen, her face pale. Every move Said made, every word she spoke, it scratched and tore at the walls they had built around their secrets. But Jabari was blind in his love, too, lost in his dreams to see the storm brewing right in his own home. "Mama! Papa! She's the one," Jabari said, his voice full of hope and pride. "I want to marry her. I love her." His words echoed in the room, heavy and sharp. Naledi forced a smile, her heart pounding in her chest. Nuru nodded slowly, but his mind was racing, filled with memories he had tried so hard to bury. Memories of a night filled with smoke, screams, and betrayal. The past they thought they had burned to ashes was now standing in front of them, alive and breathing. And it wore the face of the little girl they thought they had destroyed. Said's presence stirred something old and angry, something that refused to stay silent any longer. The dead, it seemed, had not forgotten, and neither had destiny. As Jabari sat proudly beside Said, dreaming of their future, Nuru and Naledi sat in silent horror, trapped by their own sins. The happy home they had built on lies and ashes was starting to crack, and they could feel it. The cold fingers of the past reaching for them, pulling them back to the night they thought they had escaped. At first, Nuru thought he was just being paranoid. It had been over 12 years since the fire, and life had finally returned to what he thought was normal. But as time passed, he couldn't shake the strange feeling that something was wrong, something lurking just beneath the surface. Every time he looked at Said, he felt uneasy, as if she knew more than she let on. He tried to brush it off as nothing, a fleeting thought, until one evening, everything changed. Said was in the kitchen, humming softly as she helped clean up after dinner. It was a peaceful evening, the kind where the stars hung in the sky like little lights scattered across velvet. But as Said hummed, Nuru's heart stopped. The tune, it was so familiar. He knew it. It was the lullaby Zara used to sing to Amara under the old baobab tree. That song, the one he had once loved to hear, the one that had filled their home with warmth and joy, now made his blood run cold. Naledi, who had been wiping the counter, froze. Her face went pale, and her hands shook so violently that the glass she was holding slipped from her fingers and crashed to the floor. She stared at Said, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. The air in the room thickened, and Nuru's chest tightened. He looked at Said, his eyes searching her face, trying to find some explanation for the strange connection he couldn't understand. Said smiled sweetly, her eyes gleaming with a knowing, almost mischievous glint. There was something in her gaze, something unsettling. She looked at Naledi, then at Nuru, and in a soft, almost teasing voice she whispered, "Didn't you miss me, mother?" The words struck like a lightning bolt. Naledi's face went ashen, and Nuru felt his knees grow weak. The room seemed to spin around him, as if the earth had tilted on its axis. "Didn't you miss me?" Said repeated, her tone still sweet, but there was a sharpness to it now, a weight that could not be ignored. Those words, so innocent on the surface, cut deeper than any blade. They felt like a knife twisting in Nuru's gut. The truth, buried for so many years, was finally surfacing. Saad wasn't just the girl Jabari was in love with. She wasn't just some random stranger who had stumbled into their lives. Saad was more than that, much more. Nuru's mind raced, his heart pounding in his chest. The memories flooded back, the pain, the guilt, the lies they had told to cover up their sins. Saad, with her sweet smile and innocent face, had just ripped the veil from the darkest secret they had ever tried to bury. Naledi couldn't speak. She stood frozen, trapped in the moment, realizing with horror that the child they had killed all those years ago, the one they thought was gone forever, was standing before them, alive and filled with vengeance, and she had come back to make them pay. Nuru couldn't escape the nightmare. Every night, he tossed and turned, haunted by the memory of the fire, the loss of Zara and Amara, the destruction he had caused. His heart ached with guilt, but he tried to ignore it. But the feeling that something was wrong, that the past wasn't truly gone, gnawed at him. His mind couldn't let go of the chilling feeling that Sade was more than she seemed. In his desperation to find peace, Nuru did something he never thought he would. He secretly ordered a DNA test. He told himself it was just to put his mind at ease, to prove that Sade was simply a coincidence, a strange twist of fate. But deep down, a part of him feared what the results would show. The nightmares, the whispers, the eerie connection between Sade and his long-lost daughter, they all pointed to a truth he wasn't ready to face. When the results came, Nuru could barely bring himself to open the envelope. His hands shook as he tore it open. He scanned the paper, his eyes racing over the words. The moment he saw the match, his blood ran cold. 99.99% match, it said. Sade was his daughter. His breath caught in his throat. He staggered back, his knees giving way beneath him. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. His mind spun in chaos, unable to process the truth. Amara, his beautiful little girl, the one he had watched grow, the one he had loved so deeply, was not gone. She hadn't died in the fire. She had survived. The fire had not taken her life. It had been a cover-up, a lie they had told the world. The truth was far darker. Zara's cousin, who had always been a shadowy figure in the family, had taken Amara in, hiding her away in another village. She had been raised in secret, hidden from the world, and had grown up strong and determined, all the while remembering the fire, the betrayal, the pain. And now, Amara was back, but not as the little girl Nuru once knew. She had returned as Sade, the woman who had entered his life, the woman who had captured his son Jabari's heart. Sade, his daughter, had been living in his home all along, and he had never known. She had been right under his nose, playing the part of a sweet, innocent girl, all the while carrying the weight of the truth inside her. She had come back, not for revenge on him alone, but for everything he had taken from her, for everything he had destroyed. Nuru's world crumbled as the full weight of his actions hit him. His heart broke as he realized that the child he had thought he lost forever was now standing in front of him, and the consequences of his past had only just begun to unfold. Sade's return was not just a twist of fate, it was a reckoning that he wasn't prepared for. Sade had been playing a game much bigger than anyone realized. For 12 long years, she had watched from the shadows, growing stronger, smarter, and more determined. Every smile she shared with Nuru and Naledi, every laugh she exchanged with Jabari, was part of a carefully constructed plan, a plan to tear down the monsters who had stolen her childhood and killed her family. She had infiltrated the heart of the very people who had betrayed her, earning their trust, manipulating them into believing she was just a girl with a sweet smile and innocent eyes. But beneath that facade was a woman driven by vengeance, a woman whose spirit had been broken but never defeated. The time for hiding was over. The day had come for Sade to reveal the truth, to expose the lies that had been buried for far too long. She stood in front of the entire community, her heart pounding with the weight of what she was about to do. With a calmness that only a betrayed spirit could possess, she began to speak. One by one, she presented the evidence: photos of the fire, letters from her mother, insurance records, all the secrets they had thought were locked away forever. As the truth poured out, the air grew thick with shock and disbelief. The villagers couldn't believe their eyes. For years, they had thought Zara and Amara had perished in that tragic fire, and now, here was the living proof of their lies. Naledi, once the beloved best friend, was now a criminal in their eyes. She tried to scream, to deny it all, but the truth was undeniable. Her deceit was exposed for the world to see. The chaos in the room was deafening. The whispers turned to shouts, and those who had once supported Nuru and Naledi now turned on them, their faces twisted with anger and betrayal. Naledi, desperate to escape the consequences of her actions, tried to flee, but the people were relentless. They dragged her from the house, their hands gripping her as if they could somehow pull the lies from her body. Her screams echoed through the streets, but there was no mercy to be found. Nuru, too, was crushed by the weight of his guilt. His world, the one he had carefully rebuilt after the fire, had shattered into pieces. He fell to his knees, begging for mercy, for forgiveness. But mercy was not something that could be offered to someone like him, someone who had caused so much pain, so much destruction. The villagers, who had once seen him as a man of integrity, now saw him for what he truly was: a coward, a murderer, a liar. Said, standing tall in front of the crowd, felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The monsters who had destroyed her family, who had stolen her happiness, were finally facing the consequences of their actions. Her childhood had been taken from her, but in that moment, she reclaimed her power, her dignity, and her truth. And the town, the very town that had once celebrated her family, was now left to pick up the pieces of their shattered illusions. The day of reckoning had arrived for Naledi and Nuru. The trial was swift, the evidence undeniable. Naledi, the woman who had once been Zara's closest friend, was sentenced to life imprisonment for her role in the fire and the years of deception that followed. She sat in the courtroom, her face pale, her eyes empty. The punishment was harsh, but no punishment could undo the damage she had caused. The town had seen her for what she truly was: a traitor, a manipulator, and a murderer. She would spend the rest of her life behind bars, far from the life she had once envisioned with Nuru. As for Nuru, his fate was sealed, but his cowardice proved even greater than anyone had imagined. The guilt of what he had done consumed him. As the trial went on, his body gave way to the weight of his actions. He collapsed in the courtroom, clutching his chest as his heart betrayed him, and in that moment, he died. Not in a heroic or redemptive way, but in a manner that perfectly fit his life: weak, selfish, and full of regret. His death was a bitter end, a punishment in itself for all the pain he had caused. Jabari, once the proud son of the man who had lied, killed, and betrayed, was left in shambles. The truth about his parents had shattered his world, and the humiliation was too much for him to bear. Broken and ashamed, he disappeared from the town, never to return. There was no place for him here anymore, no redemption for a man who had unknowingly loved the very woman who had been the victim of his father's cruelty. His departure was silent, like the last flicker of a flame that had once burned bright, but now was extinguished. Amara, now standing tall as the woman who had reclaimed her birthright, was the only one left to rebuild. She refused to let her mother's memory fade into nothingness. Zara's house, once reduced to ashes, was restored brick by brick, every corner infused with the love and strength that Zara had always nurtured. Amara planted vibrant flowers around the baobab tree, the place where her mother had once sung her lullabies. The tree, now alive with color, stood as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, beauty could bloom. As the sun set each evening, Amara would stand under that baobab tree, her voice soft but clear as she sang the same lullaby Zara had once sung to her. The stars above seemed to listen, as if they, too, remembered the love her mother had given. The winds carried her song, a reminder to all who heard it of a daughter's unyielding love and the price of betrayal. The story of Zara, Nuru, and Amara became one that would be whispered for generations. It was a tale of love, loss, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. The winds carried the lessons of their lives, and though the town would never forget the pain they had caused, it would also remember the strength of a daughter who overcame the darkest of pasts to honor the memory of her mother. What an incredible journey we've just witnessed. A tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and the triumph of a daughter's love. Amara's strength, her courage, and her relentless pursuit of justice for her mother are nothing short of inspiring. The story of Zara, Nuru, and Amara will stay with us forever, reminding us that no matter how deep the pain or how dark the betrayal, love always finds a way to heal. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the raw emotion of Amara's journey, then please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your friends, your family, or anyone who needs to hear a story of hope and redemption. And if you haven't already, Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can be a part of more stories like this one. Your support means the world to us, and we truly appreciate each and every one of you for being part of our community. Together, we can spread these powerful lessons and keep the spirit of resilience alive. Thank you for watching, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being a part of this unforgettable story. Let's continue this journey together.